Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can
Yep,
hear
I
you.
can.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I don't think we have a quorum.
They were assaulted with an electrifying object.
Hello, everyone. The meeting is called to order. This is the Committee of the Whole meeting for Thursday, February 24th, 2022. We are meeting today to interview qualified applicants for the vacant at-large seat. My name is Ernest Tripicongo, Council President, and I will be chairing today's meeting. Just want to thank everyone that has joined us virtually. And before we get started, just like to take a roll call. Councilman Chris Johnson,
Here.
Councilwoman Shanae Darby, Councilwoman Shanae Darby, Councilman Nathan Field, Councilman James Fadola,
Present.
You forgot me.
Councilwoman Michelle Harley,
Present.
Councilwoman Linda Gray,
Present.
Councilwoman Xanthia Oliver,
Present.
Councilwoman Brigida Fields,
Present.
Councilwoman Yolanda McCoy, Councilwoman Yolanda McCoy,
Here.
Councilwoman Maria Cabrera,
Present. Thank you.
Councilwoman Loretta Walsh.
Here.
Now circle back to Councilwoman Shanae Darby. Okay, and just as a recap, former Councilwoman Rashima Dixon vacated her at-large council seat on January 7th, 2022, and council declared the seat vacant on January the 20th with the adoption of Resolution 22-002. City Charter, Section 2-101 provides council with the authority to appoint a person to complete the remaining term based on the qualifications as outlined in City Charter, Section 2-103. Council is following the procedures to fill the vacancy as outlined in City Code Section 2-34. The Department of Elections verified all of the qualified interview candidates. Today, we will be interviewing the remaining 7. All interviews are slated for 20 minutes. Responses to the questions are limited to 2 minutes. All of today's qualified candidates were provided with a list of potential interview questions. Public comment is the second item on the agenda for today. All public comment is limited to 3 minutes and members are allowed to speak only once. Deliberations will occur after the public comment portion of this meeting. It is the intent of council to have someone in this vacated seat by March the 3rd, based upon a recommendation of the Committee of the Whole. I will now ask WITN to have Ms. Crack, I want to make sure I'm pronouncing that correctly, to join as a panelist.
Mr. President, she is now on the call.
Okay, thank you. Hi, thank you for joining us.
And thank you for giving me the opportunity to interview for this position. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Can you pronounce, I want to make sure that I'm pronouncing your last name correctly.
Yes, I get this all the time. It's Craig, long A, Craig.
Craig, okay. All right, thank you. Ms. Craig, you are here to interview for the at-large council seat. This interview is limited to 20 minutes and you have up to 2 minutes to answer each question. Please direct all of your responses to council. Ms. Bass Knight from council staff will ask all of the interview questions, which will allow council to focus on your responses. Ms. Bass Knight?
Yes. Can you assure this committee that you meet all the qualifications for the vacated councilman at large seat as outlined in the charter, namely age, city residency, and party affiliation requirements? And please share for the record.
Yes, I meet all the qualifications. I have lived in the city of Wilmington since 1994, and I'm a registered Democrat.
Please share your current understanding of the role and responsibilities for an at-large councilperson.
Well, unlike the council members who represent individual councilmanic districts, the at-large council person would be responsible for having an outreach to the entire community of Wilmington to, as I see it, sort of be the bridge between different councilmanic districts and their concerns to make sure that there is equity in what is being legislated for the city of Wilmington. And by equity, this is a very important topic for me. It's not just that there is things that everybody gets equal treatment, because some areas need to have more assistance than others to bring them up to the same level of a level playing field, to be able to see over the fence in the same way. And I think that's very important for the city to do that for all of the residents. It makes for a healthier city. If people are treated with equity, then the city as a whole is a much healthier place. And that's very dear to my heart. Oh, in addition to that, the city, the at-large council person will serve on committees as either chair or vice chair, and as a member.
Per city code and charter, council must pass a balanced budget 30 days prior to the close of the fiscal year to ensure there are adequate revenues to cover all expenses. If a property tax rate and water sewer rate is necessary, share how you would best communicate this with your constituents who are adamant for a 0% property tax and water sewer increases, and share your methodology for determining if you would be inclined or not for rate increases.
This, I think, is one of the trickiest issues that face city council members, because there's the need for the funding, and people are, of course, understandably reluctant to have taxes or rates raised. I think the important thing is to gather information about why the increases were necessary, where the increases are going to go, how they are being funded, to let the constituents know how they're going to benefit by the rate increases. And I think it's also incumbent upon the at-large council person to see what they can do to make sure that the increases are going to be equitable in the city, that they don't fall too heavily on people with the least resources. And also to let people know if they are going to be adversely affected by this in a way that is very stressful on them, that there are avenues where they can go to help make up the shortfall in their family budgets, and to reassure them that the next time when the budget is drawn up, that there will be more research into other ways in which the budget can be balanced.
Specify the number of hours that you believe is necessary to perform this job on a weekly basis.
I think that this job could take up as much time as you could give it, although it's listed as a part-time position. I would say that it would probably average out to about 20 hours a week, although there would be times when there would be more time necessary to meet with people, constituents, or meet with your fellow city council members. There are special concerns coming up, but you have to be flexible with that and to give it the time it needs. Fortunately, because I am a freelancer, I'm a consultant, my schedule is very flexible. So if I need to increase the hours that are necessary, that will not be a problem.
Share any involvement with neighborhood planning councils, civic associations, nonprofits, volunteer organizations, and community organizations on a citywide level, and provide an example of how you are able to navigate a community concern to have it resolved.
Although I've been president of the Trinity Vicinity Neighborhood Association for many years, although not now, and have been the Trinity's representative to the 4th District Neighborhood Planning Council, I would say that because those are very locally based, where my citywide experience comes is that as in the past, it was 2018 to 2020, I was the 4th District Neighborhood Planning Council's rep to the Neighborhood Planning Council leadership, which brings together all of the representatives of the 8 councilmanic district neighborhood planning councils. And so that afforded me just a wonderful opportunity to get to know what was happening citywide and what concerns were shared and what were unique. It was wonderful to be able to listen to people, to learn from each other, to see ways in which they were handling problems, to feel part of the city as a whole. And also, as we're trying to figure out ways to handle citywide problems and voice constituent concerns, we were listening to people who were coming from the outside, raising issues about conservation and green energy. And we would also get the benefit of hearing from city departments and to discuss how we would view this as a whole. It was a great opportunity. And where I've had opportunities to resolve a problem was as a member of the board of directors of Sacred Heart Housing, which helps the Ministry of Caring facilitate low-cost housing for low and middle income seniors. I wouldn't say we've solved the problem, we've just ameliorated it. And it's a very important issue here in Wilmington.
The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted our city, the country, and the world immensely, and there are limited ARPA funds. Share how you would best advocate for organizations to receive ARPA funding that are holding you accountable, considering the executive branch of government has the ultimate authority for allocating of ARPA grant funding.
I think in that regard, it's important for the city council at-large member to do research into the organizations that are requesting funding, working very closely with the specific council members from those districts to, first of all, make sure that the money, that the projects that are being proposed are ones that are going to help stabilize communities that have been the most adversely affected by COVID. What are their goals? What kind of track record does the organization have for initiating projects, accomplishing them, managing their funds well? What is the transparency like? So it would be very much information gathering and doing the vetting for the city council, helping the city council with that, and the mayor's office. It's a wonderful opportunity to reevaluate and remediate some of the problems, the structural problems that COVID has either laid bare or have made much more obvious.
Do you
It'd be great to
believe,
be, I'm going to just say it would be great to be a part of that.
thank you. Do you believe a citizens complaint review board is necessary in the city? Why or why not?
I think it's absolutely essential. It's fundamental because it's been demonstrated painfully, tragically, horrifically, that the police are not able to police themselves, and that there needs to be more transparency. So in order for the community to be heard, the community to work better with the police, I think it's essential. But I also know that this is a new concept. It's gotten a lot of pushback, and whatever is the review board's decision is, or mandate is, that there are going to be some wrinkles that need to get worked out because this is new territory. But I think talking with other cities about how they've handled this and what their citizens review board looks like will go a long way towards helping Wilmington improve its own citizens review board. I think it's crucial.
Do you believe you have the temperament that is necessary for an at-large council person to work with the public to address a wide variety of quality of life issues? And give an example.
I believe that I do have the temperament for it. I consider myself fair-minded. I do an exercise with point of view or something I think I'm very sure of, and then I reverse it. What about the other side? How would it look from the other side? So I try to be fair-minded and open-minded about it. And I don't believe I have all the answers. I love doing research and challenging myself on that. I was struck by something Mayor Baker said once, that you should be open-minded and humble in this job. And I think that I would try to bring that to the job. And as far as looking at examples where I've had to balance that, there's just so many different examples. As Trinity Vicinity Neighborhood Association president, where there are small issues about L&I issues, or representing that to the city, or working with Delmarva or Del Dot and trying to make sure that we hear everybody's point of view. I was trying to come up with a real zinger example, but I would say it was something that I have dealt with all the time. In a neighborhood that's very mixed, racially mixed, sexual orientation, economics. You have to listen and listen well and let people know they're being heard.
President Congo, I turn back over to you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bass Knight, and thank you, Ms. Craig, for your interview this evening and wanting to be a part of some of the solutions for our city. We appreciate you.
Thank you again.
You're welcome. Will now ask WITN to allow Mr. Owens to join on as a panelist.
Mr. President, Mr. Owens is now on the call.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Mr. Owens. As you know, you're here to interview for the at-large council seat. This interview is limited to 20 minutes. You will have up to 2 minutes to answer each question. Please direct all of your responses to council. Ms. Bassanite will ask all of the questions so that council members will be able to focus on your responses. Ms. Bassanite?
Can you assure this committee that you meet all the qualifications for the vacated councilman at large seat as outlined in the charter? State your full name for the record.
Yes, I believe I meet all qualifications. My name is Kobe Jaron Owens. I was born February 20th, 1995. I'm 27 years old, a U.S. citizen, a proud Wilmingtonian, born and raised here for 27 years. I've lived at 204 West 36th Street, and I'm a registered Democrat. I'm actually the vice chair of the state Democratic Party.
Do you have any time limitations or constraints that would affect your ability to serve effectively as an at-large councilperson?
First off, I just want to say, no, I do not have any time limitations that would affect my time. I am a full-time employee, but I have already talked with my employer about what it will take to be in this role. Look, at the end of the day, this is a part-time job, but I'm willing to dedicate a full-time effort into it. That means being an active member in committee meetings, in the city council meetings, meeting with stakeholders, going into the community, having constituent coffees, and listening to the residents and their concerns, as well as working with my fellow council members, whether it's a district council person or working with an issue that one of their constituents raised, or working with the other at-large or the council president or the mayor's administration. I am prepared to dedicate as much time as possible into this role.
Tell us about a community project that you effectively handled, which the deadlines and tasks just seem nearly impossible.
Yeah, I want to start with a story about when this pandemic first started. We were all struggling to find masks and find food. People's work schedules were getting changed. They didn't have the money, the income coming in that they traditionally had. So what I did, I pulled together a group of community leaders, both from Northwest Civic Association, the local community center at the Wilmington POW, and also just residents here. And what we did, we put together a program to make sure that we got food to individuals, and we partnered with Joann Fabrics, a part of their pandemic relief program, and we were able to create handcrafted masks with all different types of prints, kente cloth, superheroes. The favorite was the Eagles, but we were able to come together as a community, work together, and be able to respond in a very quick time period to get those masks and get those food out to the community in a time of dire need.
WIT, I can't tell if he's frozen or.
Oh, I finished.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay. Per city code and charter, council cannot alter revenue projections. If there is a proposed parking ticket fine increase, but you are not supportive of this fee increase, how would you handle this matter on the night of the vote of the budget, considering that council does not have line item veto on the budget?
Yeah, first off, this is the most important part of council's role, is to make sure that we pass our annual budget. So one, I would be proactive in working with the mayor's administration, the chair of the finance committee, and my fellow council members to discuss where exactly I stand, not only on this issue, but go through the budget line by line to make sure it is really centering our community, making sure we're able to pay our bills. And look, if at the end of the day, I cannot support the increase on the floor, I will look at the overall budget and look at how it would benefit our city and make sure we do our job and pass the budget.
All councilpersons take an oath of office upon swearing in. If a situation arises that create a conflict with the oath, how would you best handle?
Yeah, so first I would sit down with the law department and talk through what the conflict may be and how it may affect me. Now, to be honest, I don't think I have any conflicts of interest with the oath. I would probably take the oath right now, right here. But if there is any conflicts that arise, I will work with the law department, work with the council president and the leadership, including the pro temp as well too, to find a solution. And if it's just on a piece of legislation, I will vote present due to conflict of interest, or I will withhold my vote completely and not take part in that. But I will do my best to make sure I uphold the oath that we take.
Discuss the differences in the role of the executive and legislative branches of government and share what is the role of the parliamentarian at a council meeting.
Yeah, so first I'll touch on the parliamentarian. The parliamentarian is the person, usually from the law department, who looks at the rule of order and applies it to the meeting. They help the presiding officer in times of need. So if someone raises a point of order or something like that. When it comes to the separation of powers, we look at the executive branch. The executive branch is the responsible branch of implementing and administrating public policy and acting and funding our legislative branch. But also here in the city of Wilmington, our mayor is in charge of every department. Well, it's L&I, Parks and Recs. He oversees that. The police department, the legislative side, we're in charge. The legislative side would be in charge of enacting laws, crafting the laws of the city, which will be enforced by the executive committee, working with the mayor's administration, working with the community to make sure that we're implementing the best possible laws that lift people up.
Per city code and charter, council is mandated to do redistricting every 10 years within 6 months after the census data has been published. If redistricting map lines were drawn that divided a community of interest, please share how you would best handle.
Yeah, so this is something we just went through. In my role as vice chair of the party, I get to work on this a lot. In my role with the NAACP, I also get to work on making sure communities stay united and their voices stay strong. So first off, what I would do is bring the community together, meet with the civic associations, the neighborhood planning councils, meet with the residents who live in the affected area. And also, I would love to have a conversation with whether it's 1, 2, or 3 district council people who are going to be affected by this as well too, and see how we can come together as a council. One of the benefits of redistricting right now is council has the power to draw its lines. So by working together and listening to the concerns of the residents, hopefully we would be able to come to a solution in which that community stays united and strong, regardless of how the map looks, but making sure we keep communities together.
Tell us the top 3 issues you believe is the city of Wilmington is facing.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues that we face right now, but many council members have heard me speak at the recent council meetings about the ongoing gun violence. And look, it is a scar on our city. The soul of our city is hurting right now, especially at the high impact that it's having on our community. But look, I've said it before and I'm going to continue to say it. This isn't about blaming anyone for not doing their job. We have to look at this as a holistic approach. How can we come together with the administration, the council, the Wilmington police, the community leaders, and the individuals who are out on the street to work on a comprehensive plan that speaks to creating a safer and more welcoming city for everyone, make sure everyone is safe on the street. And then from that, you want to create more economic opportunity. That is another role. The mayor talks about it all the time. He talks about the 2 million square feet of vacant office space right here in the city of Wilmington. I am very pro worker. I want to get people in Wilmington in jobs. I want to get them working. And that means looking at how we can create the opportunity for entrepreneurs to grow here and bring in resources into the city. And then lastly, the most important part that we can invest in as a city is our infrastructure. But that's the infrastructure of our youth, because they are going to be our future. They're going to be the ones who could carry on our legacy, our great diversity, and great culture of this city.
President Congo, I turn back to you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bassanite. And thank you, Mr. Owens, for your time this evening. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
I will now ask WITN to have Mr. Hall join us as a panelist.
Mr. President, Mr. Hall is now on the call.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hall, thank you for joining us. As you know, you are here to interview for the at-large council seat. The interview will, at the most, last 20 minutes. You will have up to 2 minutes to answer each question. Please direct all of your responses to council. Ms. Bassanite from council staff will ask all of the questions so that council may focus on all of your responses. Ms. Bassanite?
Thank you, Mr. Congo.
Yes. Can you assure this committee that you meet all the qualifications for the vacated councilmanic at-large seat as outlined in the charter, namely age, city residency, and party affiliation requirements? And please share for the record.
Yes, I'll be 35 this year. I was born in 1987. I have always been a registered Democrat, and I align with party values. I worked with the Delaware Democratic Party as a canvasser, and I've lived in Wilmington since 2004.
Considering that city council is categorized as a part-time position, share what you believe is an ideal workday for an at-large council person.
Well, wake up early, which I always do. I will pray, which I'm devoted to doing. Read my devotion, get to the gym early. Gym opens up about 5 a.m. Finish training before the work day. Lots of socializing is done at the gym. I find out a lot of information that I didn't know when I'm on the prayer line. From there, my work consists mainly of meetings. A lot of things online now with Zoom, but I go door to door, I canvas everything that it is that is done involving the community that we need to meet in groups about, that we need to know what we're doing socially. Everything that needs to happen, that will happen during that time. And training, before we come to council with what it is that the community needs to hear, what it is that we need to bring forth. We have to represent the people. And I believe that our time spent every single day should be used wisely and carefully to really affect change in our city. And I think that we can do that. I know that I can. I'm looking forward to it.
Discuss your experience in working with the local community groups and/or government entities to help resolve a community concern.
Well, February 1st, I delivered a presentation along with the Community Policy Institute, which is affiliated with Network Delaware. It was about felon voting rights or disenfranchised people voting rights. I don't like using the word felon all the time, but a lot of people in my community, which includes formerly incarcerated people that have been convicted of felonies, people that have been in trouble, people over East Side, people that live over North Side, people that have been through the system, they didn't think that they could vote. So when I went out and I campaigned back in 2020, I had to tell them that they can. You know, my goal is to be able to give folks like me that come from where I come from, that have been impacted, some sort of hope, some sort of belief that they can do better. And I believe that that starts with the vote. I believe that voting is a human right. I believe that when you elect who it is that is going to represent you and who cares about what it is that you care about, cares about your values, and really wants the best for you because they've been through and they know how hard it is, you're going to be able to really be a part of the process, and you're going to care a lot more about what happens in government, in your community, in your household. You're going to care about your family more. You're going to be able to take care of your responsibilities, voting, employment, housing, everything that it is that we need starts with who it is that we choose to represent us. So I'm excited about everything that it is that we're doing to make sure that people know that they can vote. And we want more people to be able to. So we're going to do more online registrations in the near future. I think the next one is going to be March 4th. I used almost the whole 2 minutes for that one.
Per city code and charter, council must pass a balanced budget 30 days prior to the close of the fiscal year to ensure there are adequate revenues to cover all expenses. If a property tax rate and water sewer rate is necessary, share how you would best communicate this with your constituents who are adamant for a 0% property tax and water sewer increases, and share your methodology for determining if you would be inclined or not for rate increases.
I think it's important to say that I don't agree with rate increases that people aren't aware of coming really quick, unexpectedly. Even that question that was given to us, if a property tax rate increase and a water sewer rate increases is necessary, if the increase is necessary, the word increase wasn't included. But it's just, no one likes to have to pay more money. The way that you explain it, I suppose, would be to let them know that the city has to pay bills. You know, the city has to pay bills just like we have to pay bills. But at the same time, I don't understand why it is that the community, especially the community that is struggling right now, would have to suffer more because of an increase. So it will be a conversation, and I'm open to conversations. I will talk with it. I'll talk through it with them, and we'll get through it together. We'll get through this together.
Do you believe a citizens complaint review board is necessary in the city? Why or why not?
Citizens, you mean for the police department?
Yes.
Well, I was a participant in the training or the meeting, the public safety committee meeting, where the trauma specialist, the psychologist that works with the police came. I think it was called CISM, and he's been working with them since like 1993, I think it is. And there was just so much stigma. They said stigma very often, but a lot of things that could be done, I feel aren't being done because the folks that have been doing it for so long are antiquated and they're a part of the problem. And folks that should be there, folks that could offer great resource like positive thinking, like requested reading or required reading, like reading how to be a racist, or reading or how to be anti-racist. Don't be a racist. How to Be Anti-Racist, and reading The Power of Positive Thinking by Martin Seligman, so that folks don't have that implicit bias. So it's not something that you walk around with, so that you realize that everybody's not a criminal just because they're in a certain neighborhood, just because they look a certain way. And dealing with your own psychological trauma, things that have gone on in your mind, things that you've done that have caused you to be this way, to treat people this way as an officer. There needs to be new methods that are employed. As far as the committee, the communities committee, it should be the communities committee. It should include members of the community and not just police officers telling them what it is that they should be thinking and what it is that we should be doing. And I'm happy that money's there to be paid for. But yeah, that's all.
As an at-large council member, explain how you would present legislation that have major benefits for some districts, but has the potential to put other districts at a major disadvantage.
So I emailed back the answers to the questions I received yesterday. And I don't know if you guys received my answers or not, but that question is one that I truly do not understand. That question, we talk about something that is beneficial for one part of the city, one side. I don't see how it could have a negative impact on another side of the city just because it's on one side of the city. I think any good that we do is good for everyone, and we should always do what is good. Do you mean like at the riverfront? If it's something that is in a place where not everyone goes to, or if it's something that is too expensive for some members of the community to afford to partake in, so they don't go there? Or downtown maybe, where certain folks are policed more heavily or looked at more under a scrutiny, where some people don't feel comfortable. You mean something like that?
The response is subject to what you believe, Mr. Hall.
Well, I believe that we should have equality in the city of Wilmington. We should have no segregation, including economic segregation. I believe that everything that it is that we do to benefit us needs to start from the ground up, needs to start with the folks that are suffering the most. We need to eliminate these barriers and raise up the folks that are doing the worst. We need to provide everybody with the same opportunities, really not the same opportunities, but more opportunities for the people that are doing the worst, so that they can actually be equal, you know?
How would you best handle a legislative matter that arises as a conflict of interest with the executive branch of government, which there is no clear judicial interpretation?
You said a conflict that arises with legislative. I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
How would you best handle a legislative matter that arises as a conflict of interest with the executive branch of government in which there is no clear judicial interpretation?
So we're kind of under the jurisdiction of the executive branch. The mayor has a say in whatever it is that we do. I was always taught, like coming up in school, that there were equal powers in government: the legislative branch, executive branch, judiciary branch. They all were equal. But here in Wilmington, the mayor seems to have the final say. Things have been kind of troubling, and we have to do everything that it is that we can as a unit to make sure that we advocate for the people's needs in our community, we have to make sure that we do everything in our power to make sure that everyone has a voice and has the opportunities available to them that should be. And the way we do that is by bringing everybody to the table, letting everybody know what's going on, and making sure that we hold folks accountable for what it is that they're not doing right.
What do you view as the most important responsibility of a city council member?
The most important responsibility is representing the community in a positive and just way, like an honorable way. I believe that we should be an example. I believe that we shouldn't do what is wrong. We shouldn't hurt anyone, especially intentionally. I believe that we should always have a desire to serve, and from that desire comes actual just policy. I think that if we've been impacted, because I'm an impacted person, you know, I don't want to go all the way into my story, but if you've been through anything that is tough, it makes you it's easier for you to identify with folks that are going through what it is that you went through. So we have to represent for everybody that is going through and do everything that it is that we can to raise folks up.
President Congo, I turn back to you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bass Knight, and thank you, Mr. Hall, for your engagement this evening. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This time I would like to ask WITN to allow Mr. Smith to join us as a panelist.
President Congo, how are you, sir?
All right, how you doing? Thank you for joining us. Mr.
Thank
Smith,
you.
You're welcome. As you know, you're here to interview for the vacant at-large council seat. The interview has an allotted time of 20 minutes. You have up to 2 minutes to answer each question. Please direct all of your questions to council. Ms. Bassanite from council staff will ask all of your questions, which will allow council to focus on your responses. Ms. Bassanite.
Can you assure
evening, Ms.
this
Bassanite.
committee? Good evening, how you doing?
All right.
Can you assure this committee that you meet all the qualifications for the vacated councilman at large seat as outlined in the charter? State your full name for the record.
Wesley Smith Jr. And I am a Democrat. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Continue, please.
Yep. I am a registered Democrat and I am a resident of the city of Wilmington.
Do you have any time limitations or constraints that would affect your ability to serve effectively as a at-large council person?
No, I do not.
How would you prioritize overwhelming legislative and community responsibilities while maintaining a balanced lifestyle?
Oh, very good. My commitments to the city would start with my life is what it is. My personal life is what it is, and it's prioritized in its own lane. My current role at owning my own company is prioritized in its own lane. Therefore, it creates space and opportunity for me to take on the task of seeking an opportunity to be a part of council and be effective in my community.
What do you believe are the top 3 issues facing the city of Wilmington?
Definitely education, gun violence, and most importantly, economic opportunity.
The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted our city, the country, and the world immensely, and there are limited ARPA funds. Share how you would best advocate for organizations to receive ARPA funding that are holding you accountable, considering the executive branch of government has the ultimate authority for allocating of ARPA grant funds.
Okay, so how I would prioritize that is I'd work with members of council to seek out organizations that best meet the needs ultimately of the entire community, and therefore we would I would assume that working with council we would be able to come up with a criteria and a more balanced system of how to make sure that those organizations are prioritized.
Considering the gun violence that is plaguing our city as well as this country and has led to many unnecessary deaths, share your temperament on how you would best address this matter with the administration and your constituents.
My temperament on gun violence is absolutely. I live in the West Center City community, and I have a very strong zero tolerance temperament towards gun violence. What I would do is make sure that collecting information, working with other members of council to see what is going on in other communities, and trying to come up with a plan with all members of council that are being plagued with gun violence in various other communities, and seeing how we can finding the similarities in those patterns, and then after that, then tackling the problem as a whole.
Discuss the differences between the role and responsibilities of an at-large council person and a district council person.
The at-large council seat deals with the entire body of council and the constituents of the entire city, and working very closely with the district council person who meets the needs of their districts.
What is the role of the parliamentarian at a council meeting?
I like to think of the role of the parliamentarian as the person who is pretty much who's versed in all things with council, and also provides mentorship and guidance to make sure that all parties are able to speak, and make sure that council is also following all rules of the charter and parliamentary procedure.
President Congo, I turn back over to you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bass-Knight, and thank you, Mr. Smith, for your time this evening. We appreciate your engagement with the city.
Thank you.
This time we'll ask WITN to allow Mr. Farrell to join on as a panelist. Farrell.
Mr. President, Mr. Farrell's on the call.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Farrell. Hi, Mr. Farrell, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, all right, thank you for joining us. As you know, you are here to interview for the vacant at-large council seat. This interview has a time allotment of 20 minutes. You have up to 2 minutes to answer each question. Please direct all of your responses to council. Ms. Bassanite from council staff will ask all of the questions, and that will allow council to focus on your answers. Ms. Bassanite?
Can you assure this committee that you meet all the qualifications for the vacated councilman at large seat as outlined in the charter, namely age, city residency, and party affiliation requirements? And please share for the record.
Yes, I can. My name is Donald B. Farrell. I am 65 years old. I am a East Side resident, and I am a lifelong registered Democrat.
Tell us about a community project that you effectively handled, which the deadline and tasks seem just nearly impossible.
That would be a project that I started about 4 years ago called Ask the Landlord, and it's a tenant literacy and eviction prevention project. I wanted to try to address the substandard housing within the city of Wilmington. And I was able to partner with some legal service Corporation of Delaware and Classy to address some of the issues. We held workshops, and as a result of this, we are starting to gain traction with changing the law at a state level, which will affect not only residents within the city, but will also affect residents within the state. Also, I am a outreach partner with the Newcastle County No Lead program, and that is where we're trying to decrease childhood lead exposure. And that is where we are trying to connect with families with children under the age of 6 so that we can get them involved in a program before they turn 6. So there is a limit to that. COVID has hurt it, but we're ramping up. And so we're trying to get going there.
Explain the most challenging aspects of public sector budgeting to you and why.
Well, there are many aspects. The first one is communication. Trying to interact with all of the various departments and levels of government to find out what the needs are, and also to communicate with the different folks that are in the public, to let them know what's going on and to get some input from them. And the other thing is that we have to look at the vision. Where do we want to go? What do we want to do? The demands versus expectations. We know what we need to do versus what we would like to do. And the other thing is transparency. Trying to be as open and honest as possible so that if there is an increase, the community will know why there's an increase and what went into the process. And the other thing is we may have to change how we do the budget. change it as far as we have to not just think about today, but we have to think about tomorrow, think about the future. So revenue streams change, and when the revenue streams change, then the budget expectations will change accordingly. So those are the challenges.
Per city code and charter, council is mandated to do redistricting every 10 years within 6 months after the census data has been published. If redistricting map lines were drawn that divided a community of interest, please share how you would best handle.
Well, that's a real-time personal issue for me right now. And the process is very involved. And sometimes the process doesn't seem fair, but it has to be done. As long as I have involved all of the constituents, everybody in the area, as long as the residents in that potentially impacted area have been informed and have been invited to the table and have been invited to give their input and their suggestions, so that when the final result is done, everyone will understand. Everybody's not going to be happy. That's not the nature of this thing, but at least we can make it as palatable to everyone involved. And the other thing is that when you're talking about redistricting, we have to think about the future. I mean, we're talking about 10 years from now. So there's going to be a lot of changes within those 10 years. So if we look at redistricting from that perspective, then it becomes a little more palatable to everyone. We're thinking about the future, vision, not just trying to protect a particular job of a representative, but we're thinking about the future of the city, what it's going to look like in 10 years.
Do you believe a citizens complaint review board is necessary in the city? Why or why not?
I do believe that it is necessary. One of the main functions is to allow the public to offer some input on the disciplinary results of a police investigative body. Sometimes the police are kind of biased to themselves, and the result may not be the right result. So we have to give the constituents an opportunity to have a say, and hopefully the board will be independent enough to be able to offer recommendations that will be respected.
How would you handle critical, undeserved criticism from the public regarding a controversial piece of legislation that you are the lead sponsor that was enacted into law?
I think that if folks knew how the sausage was made, then there would be some understanding. The way I would handle that is to try to get as much input from the constituents, and especially the impacted community that's going to be affected by the legislation, and to bring everybody together so that we can talk about the differences. And the first thing I would do is try to figure out, okay, what do we have in common? I mean, what do we all agree on? Then I get that out of the way, and then spend most of the time on what we don't agree on. Now, this process is like everybody's not going to be happy. I mean, but if we can get everyone to the middle of the road, then that would be acceptable. And folks can realize, well, at least they had a part in the process, and they participated, and they were engaged, and they were involved. And as long as they are able to participate in the process, then whatever the end result is, everyone will be comfortable enough to know that, well, at least I understand what happened. At least I had an opportunity to participate, and it is what it is. And like I say, everybody's not going to be happy. Some things are going to be done that that's politics.
Discuss the purpose of an ordinance and a resolution and why they both are important for City Council.
Well, if an ordinance is the actual law, regulation that is going to govern conduct, business hours, any kind of local law, whereas a resolution is something where the body would express a sentiment or opinion. An example would be this process that we are going through right now. The way it is that if there is a vacancy, then everyone that's interested would put their hat in the ring. And there are some folks that feel that, well, maybe we should have an election. Maybe that would be the best way. However, because Wilmington has a charter that specifies this is how it's supposed to be done, then what Wilmington would have to do would be to create a resolution to make a change to the charter. And that would happen, I believe, at the state level. So that's the difference between a resolution and an ordinance. A resolution doesn't have any color of law. It's just how the body feels on an issue.
Discuss the differences between the role and responsibilities of an at-large councilperson and a district councilperson.
Well, a district councilperson is just that, a district councilperson. They have a responsibility for their specific geographic location, whereas an at-large councilperson is responsible for the city. And under ideal conditions, each councilmatic district should have 5 representatives, 4 at-large and 1 councilperson under an ideal condition. So the at-large councilperson is just that, at-large, the entire city, whereas the regular councilperson just has that specific geographical area.
President Congo, I turn back over to you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bass-Knight, and thank you, Mr. Farrell, for your time this evening. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This time I'd like to ask WITN to allow Mr. Leonardo Ducci Leonarducci to be join us as a panelist?
Mr. President, Mr. Leonarducci is on the call.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Leonarducci.
Good evening, President Congo.
All right, there we go. All right, as you know, you are here to interview for the at-large council seat. This interview has a time allotment of 20 minutes. We have up to 2 minutes to answer each question. Please direct all of your responses to council. Ms. Bassanite from council staff will ask all of the questions, and that will allow council to focus on your responses. Ms. Bassanite?
Very good.
Can you assure this committee that you meet all the qualifications for the vacated councilmanic at-large seat as outlined in the charter, namely age, city residency, and party affiliation requirements? And please share for the record.
Well, I'm over 18. I'm a registered Democrat, and I live in the city. I live on Bancroft Mills Road.
Please share your current understanding of the roles and responsibilities for an at-large council person.
Well, similar to a district council individual, the at-large person, at-large councilman has to probably attend more meetings because you're responsible to represent everybody in the city as opposed to just one district. So it's usually the council or the at-large councilman have a sort of a wider jurisdiction and more responsibility, but the individual district representative is usually the first person that's called to deal with a problem. But certainly, the district councilman needs assistance talking to the other council members, and that's where at-large members can be of some assistance to sort of bring a citywide perspective to the issue.
Per city code and charter, council must pass a balanced budget 30 days prior to the close of the fiscal year to ensure there are adequate revenues to cover all expenses. If a property tax rate and water sewer rate is necessary, share how you would best communicate this with your constituents who are adamant for a 0% property tax and water sewer increases, and share your methodology for determining if you will be inclined or not for rate increases.
Well, anytime you have a difficult situation like that, I think the best thing to do is to communicate as best you can. Obviously, some people are not going to be happy with the results. You have to explain as best you can why it's necessary, what are the options, and try your best to facilitate the best outcome for as many people as possible. But you're never going to make everybody happy. The best you can do is to explore all the options, see what the best options are for the majority of people, and again, communicate as best you can. Try to ameliorate the problems for individuals that aren't benefiting as much as those that are, and just make sure that the people who are not happy this time, that they have their concerns reviewed next time an important piece of legislation comes up.
Specify the number of hours that you believe is necessary to perform this job on a weekly basis.
That's very difficult. Obviously, it depends on what the issues are in your neighborhood, in your city. I've recently semi-retired. I'm an attorney. I've been practicing for 40 years on used to working a lot of different hours. I've cut back to about half of the time I'm used to working. I only go into the office Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at this point. So I've got lots of time to deal with city project. I've always been involved with a lot of different city projects. I've been involved with, I was the president of my homeowners association, the Highlands Community Association, for 10 years. I was the president of Friends of Wilmington Parks for 10 years. I have been the president of Delaware Greenways. I was on Red Clay School Board. I've always been active in my community, and it's something that I enjoy doing. So time doesn't seem to be an issue as far as my ability to do this job. Again, I've been an attorney for 40 years, and most of my practice is Social Security disability. I've worked with the poorest people, I've worked with middle-income people, I've worked with wealthy people. Most of my practice these days is working with people on supplemental security income and disability insurance. And those are people who have lots of problems, and I'm used to dealing with people with difficult situations. I do my best to make sure that I understand what their situation is and how best I can help them. I'm a hard worker, and I like to make sure that people get what they deserve. And I think I would have more than enough time to do this job. I mean, there's never enough time to do the job, but I think I'd do a very good job if I had the opportunity.
Before I go to the next question, I believe President Congo wanted to say something. President Congo?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Bassnett. I would like to acknowledge Councilwoman Darby as present.
Present. Here.
Thank you, Ms. Bassnett.
Okay. All right, next question. Share any involvement with neighborhood planning councils, civic associations, nonprofits, volunteer organizations, and community organizations on a citywide level, and provide an example on how you are able to navigate a community concern to have it resolved.
Well, I think I probably specified several different organizations I was in. I was also involved in a lot of school districts, school activities. I was on the Red Clay School Board for 5 years. I was on the Cad Callaway School Board for 7 years. I was on the 8th District Planning Council. When Mr. O'Neill wanted to develop the Brandywine River property for 999 units, something that my neighborhood felt. I was president of the Highlands Community Association at the time. My neighborhood felt that 999 units in that area, all coming down one road, Mill Road, which is a very small and narrow and steep road, would be very disruptive for the neighborhood and cause all sorts of problems. And it was overcrowding for that particular area. We got together, we had a group that met on a weekly basis. There were several attorneys on there. We organized the Highlands Community Association, and we had several meetings with the neighborhood. We had a couple meetings where the entire Highlands Elementary School auditorium was filled with neighbors to discuss this issue. It took several years to get it resolved, but we were able to make a reasonable accommodation, and now there's I think 345 units being built there as opposed to 999, which is a much more reasonable number for that area.
Do you believe a citizens complaint review board is necessary in the city? Why or why not?
I do believe a citizens review board is necessary, but it's in order for it to be effective, it needs some some changes at the state level, because right now you've got the officers' Bill of Rights, which effectively preempts the legislation. And until you get the state to take some action to make sure that we get an effective board, it's not going to resolve too many problems. I used to be a prosecutor. I used to work at the Department of Justice Attorney General's office, and that's what I did in my early career. And I know what it takes to work with police officers. I know that most of them are great people, but I know that every once in a while there's some abuse that can take place. And I think it's real important for the community to feel they have a voice in what's going on in terms of policing. I believe in community policing. I believe very strongly in community policing. And I think that sometimes with the Bill of Rights that the officers have, it interferes with the ability to do that community policing. You're not going to have peace on the street until the people feel comfortable and feel that the police are treating them fairly. When that happens, then there's going to be a lot more cooperation. There's going to be a lot more, good policing taking place. The police will be more effective. I think there's just some reluctance here and there, but I think that community policing is really the key to effective policing. And that's what I'd like to see for Wilmington.
The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted our city, the country, and the world immensely, and there are limited ARPA funds. Share how you would best advocate for organizations to receive ARPA funding that are holding you accountable, considering the executive branch of government has the ultimate authority for allocating of ARPA grant funds.
I believe that you've got to look at what the needs are, see who has the most significant needs, look to see if you can leverage funds from other sources. In other words, you might have one group that needs sources more than others, but you may not be able to leverage state or federal funds. If you can leverage state or federal funds along with city funds, it becomes much more effective. So you want to make sure that you take advantage of what other additional sources of revenue there are to maximize the ability to help your constituents. I think like anything else, anytime you have a problem, you've got to communicate. The more you can communicate and the more effectively you communicate, the better you're going to do in distributing these funds. So I think a lot of it is communication and hard work. The more time you spend understanding the problems of your constituents, the better you're going to do in distributing these funds. I've got a tax degree. I understand some of the requirements for federal legislation, some state legislation. It's important to really understand what the rules are so that you can make sure that you are aware of all the different avenues that are open to you in terms of solving these problems. So hard work, studying, just being fair to everybody you can, I think is the key to good distribution.
How would you best handle a legislative matter that arises as a conflict of interest with the executive branch of government in which there is no clear judicial interpretation?
Well, I think that communication, again, is extremely important. The first thing you want to do is talk to the person who you believe has the conflict of interest, explain that conflict to the individual, explain why it's not only in the public's best interest that he resolve this problem, but in his or her best interest to resolve this problem. If that doesn't work, then I think you need to broaden the conversation and bring in either counsel or public and let, if the individual doesn't want to recuse himself from making a bad decision and a decision that involves a conflict of interest, I think it's the obligation to bring that conflict to the notice of the public, inform the public that there is a conflict and it's not appropriate that this person is pursuing this avenue or this action, and it should be brought to the public's attention if there's a conflict of interest.
President Congo, I turn back over to you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bassanite, and thank you, Mr. Lenarducci, for your time this evening. We appreciate it.
Sure.
This time I will ask WITN to allow Ms. Perkins to join us as a panelist.
Mr. President, Ms. Perkins is now on the call.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Perkins, thank you for joining us. Just want to make sure that you can hear me, Ms. Perkins.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, it's kind of low.
Hang on a second, let me see.
All right.
All right. Alrighty, there we are. Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's much better. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you again for joining us. As you know, you are interviewing for the vacant at-large council seat. This interview has a time allotment of 20 minutes. You have up to 2 minutes to answer each question. Please allow Ms. Bassanite, we will allow Ms. Bassanite from council staff to ask you all of the questions, and please direct all of your responses to council. This way, council can focus on your responses. Ms. Bassanite?
Can you assure this committee that you meet all the qualifications for the vacated councilman at large seat as outlined in the charter? State your full name for the record.
I am Judith Kathleen Perkins, and I do meet the age requirement, the residency requirement. I live on West 18th Street in the 100 block, and I am registered with the Democratic Party. I do want to say thank you for this opportunity. I want to say thank you, President Congo, members of council, for taking the time out to do these 2 days of interviews. And I think however you created this process, I think that this is just the best and most transparent, and giving the members of our community the opportunity to be part of it was a great idea.
Do you have any time limitations or constraints that would affect your ability to serve effectively as an at-large council person?
I do not anticipate any issues around that. I have a flexible schedule, and that would allow me to attend committee meetings and community meetings. And obviously it's we know that this is not sort of that 9 to 5 Monday through Friday job. And yes, I am invested here and I'm available.
Tell us about a community project that you effectively handle, which the deadlines and tasks seem just nearly impossible.
A fun one, there are a lot. A fun one that we did in our community is we had done some asset mapping when I was president of our civic association. One of the things that we did annually was asset mapping, where we considered all those things that we liked about our neighborhood and those reasons that we moved here and remained here. And one of the things that grew out of that was that this was a great neighborhood, and there weren't that many people that even knew where the neighborhood was. And then there were people who lived outside of the city that assumed that that really didn't know that the city is such a great place to live. So one of the things that we wanted to do was a banner project, and we wanted to put some banners up in our neighborhood. And this was probably 10 years ago. And one of our neighbors created the design, and then another neighbor worked for a company that produced it and that would sell it to us for cost. But then we had to work with Delmarva Power to get them to come out and review which utility poles we could use. And then the Public Works and licensing inspection and planning had to sign off on it. And so there were all these moving pieces and there were deadlines, and there was a lot to it, but it was a satisfying process. And we did it together as a neighborhood.
Per city code and charter, council cannot alter revenue projections. If there is a proposed parking ticket fine increase, but you are not supportive of this fee increase, how would you best handle this matter on the night of the vote of the budget, considering that council does not have line item veto on the budget?
Yeah, so as a legislative body, there are certain things that council can do, and then there's the executive branch. And I think that we all in our lives end up picking our battles. And is that parking increase enough to create a scenario where a council member would vote against the entire budget? Hopefully not. And hopefully there's a sense of collaboration on creating those budgets that would lead us to making choices that our city residents can live with. I know that the parking tickets are a big sore spot for many of us. $40 is a lot of money. So yeah, again, it's about picking battles and maybe communicating beforehand about some issues that would be just an absolute no-go on a budget for increasing revenues.
All councilpersons take an oath of office upon swearing in. If a situation arises that create a conflict with the oath, how would you best handle?
So I am familiar with the oath of office for council members, and if any conflict should arise, which I do not anticipate, I would immediately inform the council president and council as a whole, if appropriate, and take the necessary steps to remedy the conflict. That might mean recusing myself on a vote, or something of that nature. Again, I don't anticipate a circumstance such as that, but yeah, that's an important thing for a member of council to be aware of.
Per city code and charter, council is mandated to do redistricting every 10 years within 6 months after the census data has been published. If redistricting map lines were drawn that divided a community of interest, please share how you would best handle.
And I think a couple of people have spoken to this. I think that community engagement is vital to maintaining a vibrant, active city. And so we do have a couple of our districts that are funny shapes. And we do need to be cognizant of how those communities are able to have a voice. But I think communication is probably the biggest issue. And I think also creating a process that is transparent and involves all of the neighbors in that process is probably the most important thing.
Discuss the differences in the role of the executive and legislative branches of government, and share what is the role of the parliamentarian at a council meeting.
So I'll start with the quickest one first. A parliamentarian is the keeper of the bylaws. The parliamentarian maintains parliamentary procedure in a meeting. the parliamentarian can also be a resource and a mentor for members of an organization so that they understand the bylaws and are able to work within them. And if you don't mind, I'm so sorry, Ms. Bastian, if you could repeat the first half of that question.
Discuss the differences in the role of executive and legislative branches of government.
Correct. So sorry. Thank you. So the executive branch would be the mayor and much of the work of the city. They all report to the chief of staff, who reports to the mayor. The council is the legislative branch that creates and passes laws. Both are important, both are elected, but they have their specific roles. There's also a judiciary, but in Delaware, that's a little bit different than other places. We have a, I won't even go into that. But yes, one is legislative and passes laws, and the other is the executive that carries out those laws.
Do you believe a citizens complaint review board is necessary in the city? Why or why not?
I think that we have all recognized that it is. We know that we have systemic racism in this country. We know that there are systemic biases that exist, and we know that those systemic biases can lead to individual biases. So a citizens review board may not have the teeth in it that we would like, and if we wanted it to have more teeth, we would have to make some changes at the state level. But a review board would be important for putting forth intention and expectation. So I think clearly our city could benefit from that.
President Congo, I turn back over to you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bassanite, and thank you, Ms. Perkins, for your time this evening and
Thank
for all that
you.
you have done for our city. Appreciate your
Thank
time.
you.
And I believe that does conclude all of our interviews. I want to thank all the candidates again for your interest in serving our great city. You know, a lot of times we get caught up in just complaining, but you all wanted to come forth and serve. So that is not taken lightly, and thank you for that. Next on the agenda, is public comment. Just want to remind everyone that public comment will be limited to 3 minutes, and you will have 1 opportunity to speak. And please use the hand raise feature. All right, I think see Mr. D. Marquis Hall. I believe he put his hand down. Yes, Mr. Hall, D. Marquis Hall.
I wanted to thank y'all. I want to thank y'all for allowing us to participate in this process, for allowing us to interview, and I just wanted to say God bless.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hall. Thanks, Mr. Hall. I just want to make sure that I don't miss anyone who wants to give any public comment before we move on. Okay, we're going to move on to our next item on the agenda. This is the time for deliberations. And although council has voted on a process which included going into executive session for deliberations, and it's a process that council has exercised before previously when going through this process of voting someone on council due to a vacancy. Our law department has issued a statement saying that they advise against it. Just want to make sure that all council members are aware of that because of possible FOIA violations. So I just wanted to just to put that out there so that the public and council members know. If any council members, this isn't really a time for deliberations about that, but if any council members would like to raise their hand, Councilwoman Oliver.
Yes, Mr. President. I know the law department said that, but after speaking, I mean, if they're on here, they can come back on. It just said that was just their opinion, but that wasn't the law, that wasn't the book. And I did speak to a judge, I'm gonna say his name, and they said that's just their opinion. So I would advise we continue to do it the way we've done it in the past, because a lot of people on here are our friends, and it's just, you know, just orderly to me. Thank you.
Thank you. So if a council member, I'm not going to make a motion, but if a council member would like to, we can take a roll call vote.
I'd like to move a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
It's a motion and second to go into executive session, and we're going to take a roll call vote.
Needs both. Both. Okay.
Councilwoman Darby,
No.
Councilwoman Gray,
No.
Councilwoman Oliver,
Yes.
Councilwoman Harley,
Yes.
Oh, say, oh goodness.
Councilwoman
Who's yes? Harley and,
Fields,
Councilwoman Fields, yes.
hey, Bob.
Hi, Ms. Bass Knight, if you can mute your phone, please. Thank you. Councilwoman McCoy,
Present.
Councilman Johnson,
Yes.
Councilman Spadola,
No.
Councilwoman Cabrera,
Yes.
Councilwoman Walsh,
Yes.
and my vote would be no. Maddie Bell? Oh.
This is all being about you.
It's in
Texas. They're 3 hours behind us.
Mary Bell.
We have six yeas, 4 noes, and 1 present. Clear and adopted. We will go into executive session.
Thank you.
Council members.
Can they mute their phones?
Please, everyone, please mute your phones. Thank you. So council members, we were provided with the link from WITN. So at this time, if you can go to that link, we will be in executive session for deliberations. After deliberations, we will come out and we will vote publicly. So anyone who is with us virtually, please be patient. We are going to go into executive session, but we cannot vote in executive session. So we will come out of executive session and vote publicly. Thank you. On WITN.
Yes, we're ready for you, Mr. President.
I just want to make sure that all council members who want to are back in this meeting. So I'll do a roll call vote. I'll do a roll call just to be, I'm not sure if everyone is here yet. Let's see it first.
Council President.
Yes, I don't see Councilwoman Oliver. Yes, Councilwoman Harley.
So it says this meeting is currently in executive session. Are we in the right one?
No. Bob Goff is on here, so what? Are we not in the right one?
Yes, we're in the right.
We're in the right one.
Yeah,
Okay.
we in the right one.
WITN just changes the screen when we
Just
start.
change the screen.
Okay.
This is the correct room. Council President, the only council member that I do not see that was in the original meeting is Councilwoman Darby.
Okay, all right, thank you, WITN. Okay, thank you for your patience, everyone who stayed with us virtually. We are now back in our regular committee of the whole meeting. At this time, candidate. Again, we just want to thank all of the candidates who participated in this process. Thank you for your patience. I also want to thank all council staff, WITN, and staff on the 9th floor. Thank you for all of my colleagues who we all work through this process together. I think we all can agree that it's not a process that we want anything to do with, but we are tasked with that. So thank you for your due diligence. I want to thank everyone from the administration who also helped guide us through this process. All right, after so the resolution for next week, on next week's agenda, we'll have Al Mills' name on it. I will accept the motion for recommendation to fill the council at large vacancy with Al Mills. Voted on by the full council on the resolution March 3rd, 2022.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. I take a roll call vote. Councilwoman Oliver.
Yes.
Councilwoman Gray.
Yes.
Councilwoman Darby. Councilwoman Harley.
Yes.
Councilwoman Fields.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Fields.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Councilwoman McCoy.
Yes.
Councilwoman Johnson.
Yes.
Councilman Spadola.
Yes.
Councilwoman Carrera.
Yes.
Councilwoman Walsh. Councilwoman Walsh.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes.
Thank you. And I will also vote yes. Motion adopted. All right, again, I want to thank everyone. I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you, staff.
Good night. Thanks, Marshall.
Thank you, everyone.